Hi everyone, I am currently at Raya's house. I'll take this off so you can actually hear me better. I'm at Raya's house, and what we're going to do today is I want to show you how to prune an ornamental crabapple. So what happens is a lot of these trees that are grafted, they end up getting very congested on the top, and when that happens it ends up creating so much weight up here and congestion that the tree doesn't grow well. Number one, it's not as healthy, and number two, it becomes top heavy. And you'll see in the landscape, you know, sometimes you'll see these dwarf Korean lilacs on standards and they're all leaning over. It's because there's too much weight there. So what you need to do is keep on top of it, prune them open, and make sure that there's a good airflow. This is a Sargentina crabapple. Any plant in the Rosaceae family and the rose family is more susceptible to diseases, so you want to make sure that you really get good airflow going through. So what I'm going to be using today is my handy dandy pocket boy saw. I love this little tool. It's a product by Silky Tools, and I just love it because you can go on different angles in that. So I'll be using this guy. It's just a little pocket saw. And I'm also going to be using my Felco pruners. These are our #1 tool in the garden center and when I'm out doing pruning and that. And so this is a Felco #2. It fits my hand well, so that's the one I use. And then this is also a Felco, this is a #21. It's my set of loppers. And these I use for a bigger branch. Okay, so you'll see sometimes it depends on the size of the branch, which ones I can use for which tool I need for which size. Also, because it is a crabapple, susceptible to disease and also carries over the disease from the previous year if it did have anything, I spray my pruners between rubbing alcohol. Just pop it in a spray bottle, label it properly so that nobody uses it for anything else that they shouldn't be, and just spray your pruner between cuts. Take the debris off and just do a quick psh, psh. Okay, so now if I'm looking at this crabapple, so this is the graft point, and this is where the Sargentina is growing from. So crabapples are notorious for suckering at the base, and as you can see here, it's already had that, but Raya's been really good at keeping on top of that and making sure that it doesn't grow back. If you let these suckers grow, they will win over. This is the rootstock from an apple tree, and this is a crabapple grafted on top of it. This one is always going to win if you let it go. So if you decide to let these suckers go, you will eventually there's not going to be enough energy going up to the top of the tree to feed it. It will all get absorbed by the rootstock. So make sure to keep on top of pruning your suckers away, not only for aesthetics reason, but for health reason. So I'm going to start, when you look at pruning a tree, make sure to look at what is potentially crossing, okay? #1, you have to take out any dead wood. Raya's been really good at taking care of this guy, so there is no dead wood in the tree. But we do have to take a look at next, once you get rid of all your dead wood and you've opened that up, then you're going to take a look at any potential crossing branches. So if I'm looking at this tree and I take a look at this branch here, so what you have to think about is, how is this tree going to grow over time? So as a tree grows, the branches are going to get fatter and fatter and fatter. So if I have a branch like this that is very close to another big main branch, as it grows fatter and fatter and fatter and wider and wider and wider, it's going to start rubbing on this other branch. So ultimately, as it grows down the road, and it's not going to take too much time, it will end up rubbing and causing a wound. So you want to avoid that at all cost. You can see here it's already going into this other branch, and it's going to start rubbing here as this little twig grows, if it makes it through. So no matter what, I want to get rid of this branch, okay? So I'm going to start disinfecting all the tools to make sure that everything is good. Sorry, Raya?
Just remind me, I need a pair of those.
Raya needs a pair of these pruners.
Yeah.
Raya used to work with us over at Beyond the House. We miss her dearly, so now we just come back and play in our gardens every once in a while. So I'm going to take this branch off. I'm not doing a proper cut right now, okay, because I can't reach in there. So I'm going to get in as close as I can, and I'm just going to take this branch out. So I do have to come back and clean this cut up properly. So I'm not there yet, just because it's impossible to do with all the other stuff that's going on. So I'm gonna make some room for myself first. I wanna get rid of these little branches because I see all kinds of issues here. You can even see the rubbing already starting here. So I'm gonna get rid of these little guys because I don't need them. If you have healthy branches, you don't necessarily need to worry about spraying between each cut, but if you are pruning out diseased material from a tree, make sure to always spray between cuts to not transfer the disease to the next cut. And then I'm going to take this guy off. And one thing to always remember is stand back and look at the tree as you're pruning. Don't just make willy-nilly cuts. Try to understand what cuts are required, and sometimes I can do this quicker because I have the experience, but sometimes you really need to stop and take a look between each cut. It's always really nice to have somebody else to help you decipher what needs to come out, because sometimes when you're in the tree, it's hard to really get an idea of where you're at. So that's why I have Karina and I have Raya here. They're good little helpers.
That's me, I'm a good little helper.
So I'm just going to take off this little stuff to make my life easy here to see. So I can see all kinds of crossing and stuff going on. This one is, as you can see, it is going right into the tree, and I have a nice main branch coming out here. So I'm going to get rid of this guy too, but once again, I'm just going to do a quick cheating cut just to clear up space. It's not my final cut. So I'm going to take that out, and I have the other guy next to it. That has to come out as well. And I don't like this one because as it's wrapping around, what's going to happen, number one, it's going to go into the window, and number two, it will start rubbing here where the crotch is really tight, and so you're going to end up with smashed bark there. So I want to get rid of that as well. So I'm going to take this guy out. And ultimately, you want to do this, you want to prune a tree much earlier, sooner rather than later. As soon as you get a young tree, the younger you prune your tree, the smaller the wound is going to be, because do keep in mind that every time you prune a tree, you are creating a wound on it. So I'm just cutting extra to get myself out of here without tearing any other branches. So yeah, the smaller the cut means the smaller the wound, the less strain there is on the tree, because keep in mind, it is a wound. It's kind of like if you cut your finger a little bit or cut your entire finger off. So you want a little cut on your finger is much better than a big cut on your finger. Just saying.
That's a good example.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but, okay, so I'm going to get rid of this guy because he's going to be rubbing. And now is a good time for me to stand back and take a look. Because I'm really opening things up a lot. One thing to keep in mind is you only want to take a third of the wood out every year. So sometimes you can't make all the cuts you want in the same year, but do make sure to get rid of the branches that could cause you any issues in this current year. Right now I'm looking at, I want to get rid of these little guys. So I'm going to be in here. I see all kinds of crossing stuff that's going to cause issues this year. So I'm going to get rid of that. And this little guy. And Raya has plants everywhere, so you have to be careful to not step on her plants because she'll be very upset. You don't want to make Raya upset. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating space. I'm allowing this tree to have much better airflow, and I'm also eliminating the risk of these branches that will eventually climb or grow into each other. So it's already looking better. If you are doing your apple tree, same concept for an apple tree. If you over prune, you'll notice that you'll get a lot of, they're called water spurts. Basically, it's a weak shoot that is going to grow up along the stem, and you'll see all these upright stems. They are formed on buds that are right at the surface of the bark, and it's not anchored down properly. So it's actually a weak joint. So you want to minimize the amount of water shoots that you get to minimize the amount of weak shoots that you have on your branch and on your tree. So some water shoots will occur, that's just normal, but try to minimize the amount, and the way to do that is by minimizing the amount of stress on the tree. You notice after the ice storm in 1998, we saw all these shoots coming up off of trees everywhere, and it was because there was so much stress on the trees at that period. So this one. Normally at this time of year, sorry Kareen, I almost hurt Kareen, but I wouldn't do that.
Workplace injury.
Yeah, I know, we can't have that happen. More importantly, Kareen's not allowed to take any time off right now because we're going into busy season, so nobody gets hurt at this time of year. But see how we're opening up already? And it's starting to feel a lot better. I think I'm gonna get rid of this guy because he's gonna cross. So here, sometimes you have to make a decision. Do I get rid of him or do I get rid of him? I think ultimately I want to keep this branch, and if I do, it's going to grow and grow and grow and rub onto this one. So I'm gonna get rid of this little one. Now if I look at this branch, it's going straight into the tree. You always want to get rid of any branches that are going straight into the tree. We're doing this video today because it's our first day of full lockdown and it's quiet at the store, so we were able to sneak out and get this done.
And
Raya
play outside.
Play outside, yeah. But we're not playing, we're working hard. That's what we're doing. Right, Raya?
Yes, you are. You're doing a great job.
So I'm gonna get rid of this one. And now it's time to stand back. So I'm gonna walk over here and look back at the tree and take a look at where it's still very congested. And there's a lot of congestion happening in here. And my issue is this one branch that's happening here because it's twisting over. I don't want to cut it out for structural reasons, but I know I need to cut it out this year. And if I take a look at what's all going to come out, it's going to leave a hole, but it's going to fill out quickly. So I'm better off making a small hole now instead of a big hole later. So I'm just going to do a quick cheater cut here.
There's a big one.
At the big hole. But it's okay. It's the right kind of hole. Sometimes you just have to do it. Sometimes when I prune at clients' houses, I get a lot of... So what I do is I ask them to go inside and make me a cup of coffee.
Would you like a cup of coffee?
I can go. You haven't yet, so you're allowed to stay, Raya.
Do you feel the need to make a cup of coffee, Raya?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes they just all have to go away and let me play. In here, this branch really doesn't need to be here. I'm okay with raising the canopy on this guy. It'd be much better. So I'm gonna get in, get rid of him. See how we're breathing all of a sudden?
Yes.
We're doing much better. Now here, we've got to make some decisions. And I think this whole thing has to come out. What do you think, Raya? If I keep him, and I get rid of this and this.
Yeah.
Because this guy's going to come upwards now.
Yeah, and he's gonna cause, he's gonna interfere with that. This one is gonna be nice here. So I'm trusting you to tell me to cut this, right? Because there's no takesies backsies. Once it's off, Ryan.
It's off. It's okay.
It's off?
all good.
Are we good?
I'm good.
Okay. So notice how when I make a cut, my pruners are sharp, so it makes a nice crisp clean cut. It's not a tear. And that's also very important when you're using your tools. It really is all about having good tools. Could you pass me that seesaw? Seesaw by the seashore? This is my handy dandy pocket boy. So now I'm gonna go back and clean up all these cuts that were really poorly made. So, that's one. And so I'm gonna have to see if I can get in here a little bit. It's important to not have any stubs left over, little stubs like this. Basically, this is going to be wood that will die back to the next node. And as it's dying back, it's basically inviting disease and insects to attack it. So dead decaying wood is what bugs love the most, as well as disease. So that's what's going to form there, and it's an entry point. So your wounds have to be a nice clean cut so that they seal over properly and don't allow any disease to set in. So it's very important to not just do a little quick cut, but to do a proper cut. There's tons of documentation online on how to prune properly, and please feel free to, you know, ask me for any references, and I will gladly help you find the right documentation. Because it's difficult to show in a video. But basically what you're trying to do is not cut the branch collar off, and you want to cut just outside of the branch collar so it basically heals like a donut. If you get a donut wrapping around the branch collar, then you've done a perfect cut. That is your ultimate goal.
What do you mean by a donut?
It's so if you ever notice the old, in big trees and that, as the wound heals over, it'll wrap itself over and it will ultimately close off that wound on its own. So trees are super smart. They know how to heal themselves. And if it does, it's basically a tree that's going to heal in a way that nothing can enter the center of the tree. So if it looks like a full donut, not a half donut, then you've done a good job.
We often get people asking about putting that paint.
Pruning paint is bad. So please don't apply pruning paint. What happens with the pruning paint is basically, it's like a tar or wax that you paint over a wound. And when you do that, in our climate, with the freeze-thaw action that happens in the wintertime, the only thing that's going to happen is bugs are going to hide underneath there. So it's a nice little hidey hole for them to be able to continue their wonderful life under. And you never know what's going on. So it's actually doing more damage than good. Trees that have big wounds on them, they need to heal on their own. If there's any way that you can clean up that cut to make sure that you don't have a nasty cut that's going to cause decay, that's the best answer. Raya has a new Helleborus here, I can see. And I don't want to hurt it because it's starting to come out.
Is that a white one?
It is. Is it? Do you know which variety? No. It's whatever we put there, right? So, a little bit too far out on this guy. And now I can see how I can get to my other branches that I cut earlier. Now I can do a proper cut. As close to proper cut as sometimes it's so congested it's next to impossible. I've even had to take out chisels to try to clean things up right. So the wood is healthy. There's no disease in this tree. Glad to say, Raya, you're taking good care of it.
Good job, Raya.
Good job. So no little stubs. And sometimes you do have to stop and take a look on both sides to make sure you're not cutting into the next branch and go like that. Try not to neck other things either.
And where would you recommend to sharpen your tools?
That's a tricky one. Francine found a company in Ottawa that does a good job. We were going to offer it, but right now with COVID, there's not enough time in our days to do it. Raya, I really want to get rid of this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And I need my loppers for that. Raya has one of the most beautiful properties in Russell. It's very peaceful. You can hear all the birds chirping away. This was the branch I was talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So it's starting to look a lot
Oh my
better.
gosh.
Night and day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this branch needs to go. And I'm just debating on whether I'm doing it now or if I'm just gonna let it be for a year and then I'll take it out next year. Because I'm kind of getting to a point where I've taken quite a bit off, but I can at least get rid of any of these small guys that will cause grief. The beauty about crab apples is when they're all wonky. That's when we love them most. You're not looking for a crab apple to be perfectly symmetrical, and we like the gnarliness of crab apples. Oh, this guy here's got to go. And this has got to go. And this has got to go. And this one's starting to go up. And this one's too close. My boppers. How's it looking, girls?
Much better.
Oh yeah, like
It's really opened up.
Yeah, and if you know, I know it's frightening sometimes to watch these cuts happen, but it's if you walked in and saw it after without actually watching the whole process, you'd be excited about it. Sometimes you just can't watch. It's like you gotta pull the Band-Aid off sometimes. There's a lot of congestion here, so nothing's been dealt with on this side. I remember my prof in horticulture, he always said when you're pruning, make sure to leave your tree with some dignity. At the end of the day, if the tree has completely lost its form because of how you pruned it, maybe it's time to replace the tree. And then it's the opportunity to get a new tree. Sometimes that's fun too. But when you get to keep a crabapple like this for years and years, there's nothing more beautiful than watching it grow, because they have so much character.
While Cindy's looking, we can look at all the other things that Raya has in her gardens up here.
Raya, I'm gonna get rid of this branch only because this is the pathway that we walk up, and if I get rid of this, then we're clearing your head a bit more.
sure.
Yep, huge.
You know, sometimes you're pruning for the space as well, like because this is where Raya goes down to her backyard. You know, we want to remove any of the head knockers and the eye pokers.
That's the technical terms.
That's technical terms. My husband always asks me to go around and get rid of all the eye pokers so that when he mows the lawn, he doesn't get poked in his eye. And then I tell him, well, I can't prune that right now because I need the birch wood, I need that for winter containers, so you're gonna have to wait till next fall. And there's all kinds of rules at our house. I probably drive him more crazy than I realize, but he's very patient.
I'm gonna play this video back the next day. She's complaining.
Do you remember? Do you remember how patient your husband
Yeah,
is?
wait till Scott sees this.
Oh dear.
How are we doing? Am I getting rid of this one yet?
one in front of you, is that like an eye poker?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see, you know, there's going to be issues up here. So I'm going to take that branch out, but I think that's going to be the end of it for this year. And then maybe next year Ryan will let us come back and we'll see how the tree did and how much grew in. So now we have a picture of what it looks like now. And then we'll get a picture of what it's going to look like in the summer.
In blue.
In bloom. So what you can do with these branches, right now it's what, April 7th? The branch buds, the flower buds are starting to swell up. Pop this in some water and you should get some blooms within 2 to 3 weeks inside the house.
Okay.
So definitely beautiful to get crabapple blossoms in your house by the end of April. So I think that's all we're going to do, except I have to take this off. It's always just one more thing. One more thing. And then now is a good time to get rid of any of these little stubs. One more thing. I see a little stub here. No little stubs. Stubs are bad. And I bet you guys are watching us going, get that one, get that one. But I think we're doing okay. This one can come off. It's probably the way hairdressers feel when they're trimming. Just a little bit more. Mind you, they haven't had the opportunity to see enough of that this year.
Nope.
We feel for you guys. So when you do go back to your hairdresser, make sure to tip them well. As well as your restaurant servers, because they have definitely been hurt.
Yeah.
So nothing is going to cause us issues this year. But like I said, pruning, if you do a little bit every year and keep on top of it, you can always create a beautiful, beautiful tree. This one can cause issues. This one's going to be a little stub. There's another little stub. Raya, have you been pruning by leaving little stubs?
I guess so.
I think you have
I
been.
think I'm responsible for those stubs, yeah.
Okay, so Raya, no more stubs.
No.
All right, boys and girls, I think we stop now. Because you can go on and on and on and always find things. But I think for this year, I don't see any crossing or rubbing, potentially. And Raya has a pretty tree.
I'll send you a picture when it's in full bloom.
Okay, so I think that's about it, guys. Raya, are you happy?
I'm very happy with it.
Excellent. So now that's a tree that can breathe. There's proper air circulation. The branches are still gnarly and fun the way they should be. And we have something that is really going to grow well in the future. If you do want to control the height and the length of a tree, make sure to always get back to a proper node. Don't just cut willy-nilly in the middle of a tree because you'll end up with these branch stubs that you don't want. And you know, and try to prune it in favor of the current landscape that you're working in. So next year, I think what's going to happen is I'll take this branch completely off and allow this one to grow up so that I can always walk right by. But this year, I'm just going to leave it be. It's not in harm's way, unless there's a very, very tall man. But tell him to lean over.
To lean,
Yeah.
I'll Todd the duck.
All right,
Walk
so
in the
that's
pond.
our little pruning session for the day. And we're going to get back to you and show you how to prune dogwood as well, which is a basic shrub that you can prune, and it's going to be the same rules for most shrubs. So last year we did hydrangea, this year we're just going to do dogwoods and that. All right, so have a great day.